Girl, real talk. This whole "it's new year, time to reinvent myself" trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
A note to listeners: the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
We were at our family reunion. It has been the first time we'd seen our family in quite some time. When we got there that day, the family spent most of the time outside, and Molly was inside. And I seen Molly in the house, and I went in and talked to her, and we kind of were just touching base and getting to know each other again, and hadn't seen her in a while. Anyway, I could kind of tell she had some things that were off.
And so I took that zip tie that was cut, and I had Cindy hold her arms out in front of me, and it fit perfectly around her wrists if I were to use that as a restraint. Toby thought he found a human tongue, or a chunk of a human tongue.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman.
It's only been a week since we returned from Love County, Oklahoma, and so much has happened since our search of Moxley Pond, some of which we can talk about and some of which we cannot at this moment. But one thing is for sure: the investigation into what happened to Molly and Colt is in full swing, and that is a very good thing.
First up, we're going to talk to Heath Wright, who is Paula's oldest son. Heath has a unique perspective on this case since he really hasn't been involved for the past 9 years, and we'll hear why he hasn't been involved.
The second part of the podcast will be devoted to day 2 of the excavation dig, and we'll talk with Maureen O'Connell, retired FBI, who we recruited to come out to Moxley Pond to help supervise the excavation and to describe some of the items that we found on day 2.
But first, let's hear what Heath has to say.
Okay, so today we're really excited to have Heath with us, and this is Paula's oldest son, and I've been hearing about Heath for a very long time. So we're very happy to have him here today, and it was just really wonderful to meet him and his wife Bonnie, who have been like a pillar of strength for Paula and helping us and doing all this hard work, and it's just been awesome to have them here. So thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
We're very happy to have you. I think it's important to go back a little bit, and since you were the person who alerted your mom a long time ago before Molly went missing that something was wrong, can you tell me that story?
Yeah, we were at our family reunion. It has been the first time we'd seen our family in quite some time. I think that they had the family reunions quite often, but this was the first one that we had attended in a while. And when we got there that day, the family spent most of the time outside, and Molly was inside. And I've got a kind of dicey background, I guess you could say, back years ago, and I was caught up in a bunch of bad things. So anyway, that day I seen Molly in the house, and I went in and talked to her, and we kind of were just touching base and getting to know each other again, and hadn't seen her in a while. Anyway, I could kind of tell she had some things that were off, and I talked to her about them and stuff. And with the fact that I had lived kind of a questionable life at one time, I kind of knew some of the things she had going on, and I could tell that it wasn't good. Well, at the end of the day, everything wrapped up, and me and Mom were on our way home. And I told Mom I felt like if we didn't do something for Molly, she was going to end up in a bad way. Because we had talked earlier, and she said that, she had some friends. I told her she couldn't pull the wool over my eyes because I knew better, And she said she had some friends or whatever, and she didn't really go into detail or any kind of length about it, but she said she had some friends that probably did some stuff that I wouldn't agree with. But so I told Mom that we should probably bring her home, and she said that she would wait a little while and get established in the house that we were living in, and then talk to Alex and her mom about it. And try to get her to Shawnee with us, and we never made it that far. She came up missing after that. So yeah, it was kind of hard. It was hard. Mom kind of held herself responsible for what happened when it really wasn't Mom's fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just little girl puppy love, and now you see where we're at with it. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked to Paula about this a lot and how she's kind of carried that guilt with her all this time. And it's not her fault at all. I'm glad that you said that. So it's good that she has you to remind her.
It's none of your family's fault.
No, it's nobody's fault. Nope, it's nobody's fault. We all have choices to make, and at that age, you're so impressionable. And especially a little girl who, she finds a guy she likes, and she's going to like what he likes, and that's just all there is to it. Yeah, nobody's fault. Everybody in the family loved her. We've got a good, strong family. Everybody, we really miss Alex. I didn't get to be there for his funeral and stuff, but I know this killed him. It just destroyed his soul.
What was your relationship like with Molly? It seems like you could talk straight with her.
Well, she had stayed with Mom a few times over the years. I think one time during the summer she stayed with her, and we kind of got to be friends then, and then a couple other times at reunions or what have you. But other than that, we didn't have like this real strong family relationship, her and I. Of course, she was quite a bit younger than me anyway. So yeah, we didn't have like the strongest relationship, but I knew her and she was my family and I loved her. The family loved her. So she was a good kid. I know that. I can tell you that. She was a heck of a softball player. She loved everybody and she loved horses, and she came by that honestly, so.
But you obviously knew something was different that day because you made a point. And you're very observant because you've made a couple huge observations while you've been here. And so was it just your gut?
I know that there's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff that has gone on with this case that I know nothing about. I've actually been separated from this whole thing since about, several months into it, since Con's first or second court date, I think. And the family said it's probably better if you just stay out of it because you're going to end up in trouble, because I can't stand that guy. But this feels different. Like, this is the first time I've really been involved. Whenever Mom said that we were coming out here because the dogs hit 3 times in the same place and so on and so forth. I don't know. When we got out here that night, we went out to the one spot. I didn't feel any connection to that area. But when we started digging, I just felt like there's something here, man. There's something in my soul telling me we can't stop. After the first day, I felt like everybody was like, well, mark that one off the list. And then something said, no, you can't mark this off the list. This ain't done. Like, we've got to see this through.
Yeah. And like we were talking with Maureen earlier, is that we were digging all day, and then we were able to bring a cadaver dog team in that has worked with us before. They came in, seemed like their dogs were a little distracted, and they didn't seem like on point. I was attributing it to we were moving a lot of dirt, pushing around a lot of scent, so we all kind of chalked it up to that. And then we came back to the house, Toby's house, and we were sitting around talking, and you said something that was really poignant. You just said, because we were all feeling it, and you said it. Tell us what you said.
We're not done there. I don't feel like we cannot base that day's feeling off the dogs and off the end of the day. Everybody was tired. Everybody had been working all day, moving around a lot, ready to go in, and it just felt like at the end of the day that it was over. And then when I came in and took a nap, I woke up and said, man, we did not do enough. In my soul, I just felt like we didn't do enough. Like, hey, we got to give this one more day at least. Bring in some different dogs. You already had 3 dogs hit out there. If we can bring in some dogs that'll verify those hits, and then we got something. And then that's what y'all did. Everybody kind of put their heads together, and I think Mom ended up getting a hold of a guy that came out, and just his dogs were phenomenal, and he was phenomenal, had a good spirit about all of them. Then the dogs hit again. And I mean, if that doesn't tell you we're in the right spot, then I don't know what will. But last night I knew we couldn't quit. I knew I just feel it in my soul, like that's where they're going to be.
Yeah. I felt like when the dog handler showed up this morning after driving 3.5 hours from Tulsa, and then I think your mom talked to him about 9:30 last night. When he told us all the research he did on this area and the case in one night, he must have been up for till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Had to have been.
Because because not only did he just research the case, He researched Battle Springs Ranch.
The topography of the ranch.
The ranch, the type of vegetation that's on here, the weather, everything, the way the wind blows. He had it dialed in. And then he came in, and his dogs were Special Forces dogs.
Right.
They were exact, and like within, I'd say about 10 minutes, that dog hit on the same place where all those other dogs hit.
Right.
And so I think that gave us all a new life. And we just kept on digging, and we're still digging. And like, this is day 2. We've all adjusted our schedules now to stay here for another day. Mm-hmm. You have responsibilities, you have your own business, and life moves on. The fact that you have not been involved in this case for all this time, and now you feel like you need to be. Why do you feel like you need to be now?
Because we were very hard on our mother at the beginning.
That
my sister was, but me and my brother definitely were. We're definitely mama's boys, and we lost our mom there for a while. All of our attention was on one thing. And in the beginning of all this, and I'm sure you guys know this, there were some people involved in law enforcement, but she was the go-to person. Like, because nobody else was doing anything that was, I mean, they're losing evidence, misplacing evidence, not taking phone calls, not taking people's words, or not checking on leads for this reason or that reason. And our mom just consumed herself with it. So at this point now, I've kept myself separate for so long. I just felt like when mom was telling me about this situation, I'm like, well, if something comes of this, somebody needs to be there for her, like family-wise, like one of us. Even my sister thought about coming this time. Her husband is on vacation right now, and they're kind of enjoying being at home together at this moment. So I was like, it's time to be here. And then when I get here, I get to meet all these great people and see the people behind the scenes and the people being active in this case and the people doing all the things that nobody else would do in the beginning and sharing the responsibilities with my mom. And that really meant a lot to me, especially Toby here. Like, Toby has just opened up his home. I mean, this is a great little small community you guys have created for her. And now I can appreciate it more rather than thinking of it from a selfish point of view where I just need my mom, because we're used to having that relationship, Yeah, I needed to be here. I knew it. I felt it.
It sounds like you appreciate all the hard work she's put into this now. Whereas before you felt it was a block for you.
Right. Well, I had a bad attitude about it in the beginning. I just felt like, somebody else could handle this. Mom, why are you doing it? She said, because I have to. And it all goes back to the conversation we had the day we left from the family reunion. And I kind of caught a little grief about it, I guess. I didn't hear it directly, but it was told to me, and it kind of bothered me a little bit. But I'm not a psychic, and I'm spiritually in tune with my Father in heaven. That's about it. From my personal experience, I knew that she was going through some things that were going to lead her down a bad road. Told Mom about it. We didn't act on it, and things happened, but it's nobody's fault. Being here for Mom meant a lot to me this time.
And it's awesome that you are here because, again, like Rob said last night, you were saying what we were all thinking. And I think it was because of your emotional response yesterday, too, when we saw your face and you were emotional and you were like, this needs to end.
Yeah, it's time. It's time for this to end. I'm not emotionally invested in it like Molly's immediate family or my mother or anyone else, but I know that they are ready for this to be over. And when it's over for them, it's going to be over for all of us. There's some guys that deserve to be in a jail cell for the rest of their life, and it hasn't happened, and why that hadn't happened, that's where I get a little confused in all this. But I know that you guys have worked your tails off along with Mom. Like, you guys are sharing the responsibility. You guys are making phone calls. She's making phone calls. Toby's making phone calls. I mean, we've met Maureen, man. She is amazing. And then Mac yesterday. I mean, just some great people sharing the responsibilities, coming out here, doing their due diligence and doing the work. And it means a lot. Like, I see it now. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good when a group of community of people with a common goal that is such a powerful, good common goal. And it's just to find out what happened and bring them home.
Right.
Bring them both home.
Yeah.
And not only Molly, but Colt. I mean, Colt was a victim too.
Yes.
Even though he was doing some bad things, I mean, you can relate to that because I'm sure at your age, I don't know if you were around that same age, maybe that's how you were rolling. Mm-hmm. So you can probably identify with some of the.
I can definitely identify with it. Yeah.
And it's an easy trap to fall in as a young person when you don't have any purpose and you're out of high school and if you're not doing anything. And And this area is so ripe with the drugs, and it seems like there's nothing else to do other than that. And so it's easy to do, and everybody does it. So like when everybody's doing it and all your friends are doing it, it doesn't seem like a bad thing.
Right. Well, yeah, especially when you hear all the party favors are coming from the sheriff of your county, you think there's nothing wrong with it.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Yeah. That's problematic.
I've never lived in a place where that was the case. And I've lived in a bunch of places, and I've done a lot of bad things in my life as far as just my personal health and stuff goes. And never have they said, hey, man, this comes from the sheriff. Or they let his son take a car here or there to go get this stuff for us, man. No, never.
It's kind of like a green light. It's okay.
Do what you want. Have a good time. It doesn't matter. Everybody's doing that. Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what probably Molly got caught up in. She didn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
And then she had the guy that she had a crush on. She wanted to make him happy. She wanted to belong. She's only 17 years old. That's all you want to do when you're 17 years old.
Yeah.
Is you want to belong to a group. You want to be popular, and especially if you have a crush on someone. That's
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, she just met him a week before.
Yeah.
So that's the part where everyone's going crazy. Like there's all those emotions that you don't even understand. So if she's running around with him, she's going to do what he's doing.
Exactly.
She wouldn't even have questioned it.
Yep, without question, especially when you got goo-goo eyes for a guy you
Sure,
like.
and 17, you don't know what's going on.
And guys can be pretty persuasive. I know I am one, so we can be pretty persuasive. But, I mean, even in Colt's defense, I mean, he was just a kid who was doing things he shouldn't have done. And had he still been here, he probably would be doing better. He probably would have a different kind of life. I know it's possible because I've done it for myself and my family. So,
well, we know that was happening because he had just had a kid. We also know that Katie told us that I think he wouldn't go 48 hours without calling her to find out about the kid.
About his son. So he wanted to. He really wanted to be a dad, like a good dad. So
he's probably at that point in his heart when he was questioning what he was doing, whether it was right or wrong, regardless of who was saying it was okay, and just didn't make it to that point, which is tragic and unfortunate.
So tragic, all of it.
Yeah.
What was your first thought when you were coming here? Because I got the text from Toby literally just before we left from Los Angeles to come out here, and he said, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up because we're trying to keep everything on the down low here."
Right.
He says Paula texted me and said that she's bringing her son Heath and everything. I don't even know if we'd met before.
No,
we had never met before. So I was like, and I called Paula. I go, he goes, no, he wants to be there for me. And I was like, wow, it's great because I knew that you had aversion to all this stuff, and you don't want really. Because every time we talk to Paula, he goes, yeah, they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with it. And so I was curious on whether or not you were going to come and be supportive, or you're going to come with a bad attitude.
Right.
Saying this is bullshit. Why are you wasting this time?
Right.
So, and I think you eloquently pointed out earlier why you wanted to come. That you had this aha moment where it's like, listen, if they do find something, I got to be there for my mother.
Yeah.
And then you see him running the whole show all day long, standing on the pile of mud and digging in there, and you're in there and you just did it. You really just got in there. Just got in there and got your hands dirty. You and your wife, you both were amazing, because that's not easy to do.
I feel like y'all are close. I feel like everything that y'all have done has been for a good reason. And it's a weird feeling to be standing on top of the pile that could possibly have one of these kids in it, and you're spraying it down with water. It's a bittersweet feeling. It's like you're so excited, and at the same time you're like, how am I going to feel when something actually pops out of here? It's going to be one of the moments where everybody's probably going to scream with their hands in the air and then just cry,
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be easy, but it's everybody's hard work finally coming to an end, and some closure for everyone, including y'all. Like, y'all are vested in this emotionally, just like everybody else is. So it's not just like you guys are here doing a podcast or a TV show. It's like you see you guys in the mud getting dirty and trying to set up cameras and running around and grabbing a hoe or grabbing a rake or whatever. So you guys are just as invested as anyone else.
Absolutely.
100%.
It's hard not to. I mean, there's something about your mother that really drew us in when we, because we've done a lot of these true crime shows where we deal with a lot of victims' families, and there's a couple of them that we got close to. One of them where we felt like this person
Needs our help.
Needs our help. This case needs more eyeballs, more ears. It needs more publicity. It can't die because, as we all know, whatever's ripped from the headlines, there's plenty of cases that just disappear. Mm-hmm. They disappear. And it's not, they don't disappear. They disappear from everybody's daily thought process.
Yeah.
Okay? And this case in particular, everyone wants to go away. Everybody that's in this area wants this case to go. All the people that are responsible for looking after this community want this case to go away.
Right.
They'll never say it publicly. Number one is they don't think it's going to be solvable. Number two, they don't think the bodies are ever going to be recovered. In their eyes, if they don't have any body, they don't have a case.
Right.
And number three, the cast of characters in this case, top to bottom, I've never seen it so much. And I just got off the phone with one of the law enforcement officials just as we got back from doing the excavation. They thought they were close. Last night, he was here last night, and he said they got a couple left turns, and they're questioning their theories now. That's how this case has been from day one. And it's because there's so many theories, and this community it's spread out, but it's small. And everybody knows everybody. Some of them are related to each other distantly. There's a lot, we were fascinated in the beginning when we found out that Molly is a distant cousin of Con.
Right.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he just won't take any responsibility for anything. And no one's saying he did it, but he was the last person to see her.
Yeah.
And had he not done that car chase, who knows what would have happened? I mean, that's the two things that everybody can agree on. Had someone gone to his house sooner after that car chase, maybe they could have found out about Colt and his leg being broken and stuff. There just was no follow-up.
Right.
Any other place, if there's a high-speed chase, and they knew who he was. They know where he lives. Everybody knew who he is. He's done it before. And the fact that there was no initial follow-up, and people that live in this area, have said that to us.
When you had a run-in with Con?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what happened?
Well, it wasn't necessarily a run-in with him, but we kind of had some words outside the courthouse. He's liable to not even remember, but we were lined up in the hallway. Like the Hatfields and McCoys, there was the Nips on one side and the Millers on the other, and
this was after he was prosecuted for his second chase by the OHP.
Right. Yeah, this is when he was prosecuted for that. That's when kind of I was told to step back because I was going to end up in trouble. But that day, we were all told to stand against the wall and not move when they were bringing him out of the courtroom. And then his mom and aunt chased him. And then my mom chased them, of course. And as we were going out the courthouse, I think it was his aunt that went to slam the door in my mom's face. And I pushed my mom out of the way and got in her face. And his mom's yelling at him, "Keep smiling, baby." And then I ran up and I had a couple words and probably some things I shouldn't have said, and then we broke up, and then Mom told me, you need to stay away from this. So yeah, it was a bad deal, and like you said, with the zero follow up after all the stuff had happened, that's why they want this to go away, because when we find them, there's going to be a lot of heads that are going to roll. I went to visit my mom. It was a few months ago. She was talking to the agent that is constantly kicking up a stink about this podcast and everything else.
Oh, the OSBI agent, yeah.
Is that what it is?
OSBI.
Yeah. He wouldn't shut up. Like, Mom couldn't get a word in edgewise, and he kept interrupting her. And finally, I just spoke up and hey,
that's when you were in the car with her, and she had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, man, I'm down here trying to visit my mother. Is there any way you could shut up? I didn't say it like that, but I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to visit Mom. Can y'all get off the phone now? And I remember there were some things that were said during that conversation. I don't remember them exactly what was said, but it was kind of comical because it felt like he was trying to cover something up. It really did. I'm not saying he is. That's not what I'm saying, but to the point to where the minute Mom went to hang up the phone, I go, so who's going to play me in this movie? Because, what this is just a big old
drama.
Like a drama. Yeah. Drama. It's like, wow. I'm like, well, sorry. I'm just saying, this is ridiculous. Holy cow, but I've never seen anything like this. It's definitely...
Well, we've seen something like this.
We've seen other things that are pretty bad too, but this case is the layers of drama and storytelling and people and their personalities. Like that guy, he's always pretending he's just he knows everything. Everybody else, he's trying to convince you and fast talk you. I mean, we've heard so many stories about him.
Is he the one that said that dogs were junk science?
Yes.
I think that's what Paula said.
Which is kind of funny.
And then we had a guy with 2 dogs out here today that hit on the same spot 3 other dogs hit.
And he's actually the guy that OSBI calls in.
Oh, so we got to deal with somebody that doesn't even believe in what we're doing then.
No, I'm just saying the handler that we brought in today, he works with the OSBI.
Oh, he does?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, he asked who the governing body was if we find something, who we were going to call, and we told him, obviously OSBI is looking into this case. We're talking to them through someone else, and we would alert them, which we did when we did find something today.
But you are right. I mean, the person at the OSBI that your mom has been dealing with, he said that the dogs are junk science. So that is someone that she has to deal with and has been dealing with who doesn't believe in the dogs, even though the guy today works with the OSBI.
Yeah, and did a report. Like his dogs hit on cadaver. Yep. So, I mean...
He said 100%.
100% dogs hit on cadaver. So, and then he also made another comment that I loved because I'm from the country too. He said, if dogs are junk science, then why do we use them for bird hunting? Why do we use them to chase down pigs? Why do we use them for this and that? And it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I mean, like we train dogs to do all kinds of things, and they're our best friend for a reason. And I don't know, I got a dog and she's my baby and I love her. But if you have something that you're passionate about, whether it be hunting or whatever, we use our dogs for that. And these dogs were very well trained. And you could tell, I mean, they listened to their owner and he loved his dogs and they hit on that spot. And I believe with all my heart, we're right there. And I think these guys either need to hit Mexico or turn themselves in because it's coming down, baby. We're fixing to get you. That's the ultimate goal, is to have some closure for the family, put these kids in a decent grave, not in a mud hole.
Exactly.
And these guys need to go to prison.
The other thing that I thought was really poignant that you did, I think it was yesterday before we even started, you felt the need to say a prayer.
Yes.
So talk about what motivated you to do that.
Well, in my life, personally, I've been down in my own mud holes, if you metaphorically speaking. I've been in some of the worst places a person could put themselves in, like self-inflicted, completely. Nobody's fault but my own. God's always been there for me in my hardest times, in my best times. I can turn to God and God will be there. In this situation, if anybody believes that God ain't got his hand on it, they're mistaken, because he does. Because first of all, when Mom laid down in the beginning of all this and was praying for somebody to help her, then you guys came into the picture. Toby came into the picture. This was not by accident. This was on purpose. God's done this for a reason. He's got the right people in the right place at the right time. And before you start something like that, you want to ask him to guide your hand. Because if you do, you're moving in the right direction. If you forget to include God...
Oh, we agree 100%. There's no accidents. God is driving the car here.
Yeah, he's got to be.
Yeah.
He's got to be. Because good people like you guys don't come into other people's, like my mom's, life on accident.
The thing about your mom is her powerful conviction, and we're both people with conviction. So we're attracted to people who are committed and have conviction for something.
We're attracted to righting wrongs.
Exactly.
Right.
If there's an injustice, we are drawn to it and we want to fix it, because to us, that's not right.
Yeah.
None of this is right. This is the United States of America. This stuff should not be happening in this country.
Yeah.
I've been to 37 countries. This should not happen here.
Right.
And it's a simple crime. It wasn't very complex. And it's turned into something that's super complex and convoluted and diluted and just so frustrating, because had it happened somewhere else where they didn't have a sheriff who was untoward and corrupt and where people didn't really trust him and who was kind of controlling things in an illicit way, this wouldn't have happened.
Right. That's exactly right. I mean, it all starts with the sheriff and it trickles on down. I mean,
regardless if he knew, he set everything in motion. He created parameters for all these people to do all these things and get away with it.
Yep.
And could have been profiting from it.
Oh, probably was profiting from it.
And if it wasn't for your mother, and had she not taken control of the situation and just kind of bypass and just said, listen, you guys can go do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. because you're not moving fast enough. And whatever I find, I'll give you. Whatever I get, you'll have. But I'm going to do my own investigation.
Yep.
Had that not happened, Joe would still be sheriff.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, Molly's case was the trigger for shining a light on all the corruption in this area. So it did serve a purpose in that respect, as tragic as it is that what happened.
Yes.
But because of your mom pushing and pushing, and because she was an outsider, I think that she upset the apple cart here.
Oh, yeah.
And
And,
and there's still things going on. A couple weeks ago, we had on the podcast a young defense attorney in Ardmore who discovered this recording device in the attorney's room in Carter County Jail that had been there for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever happens with that, who knows? But the fact that now the community feels empowered to combat corruption because this young attorney is not going to let this lie. He even told us that he's going to take this to the highest court to find out what went wrong there because those were all his clients in those rooms. He's had over 200 interviews in those rooms. And that compromised everything about the justice system that we have right now. Attorney can't talk privately with their client. The game is rigged.
Yeah. Yep.
It can't be rigged.
Well, and regardless of what the client's charges are
Exactly.
or what they've done, they have rights that were given to them by the United States of America. They were put into the Constitution for a reason. And for anybody to step outside those rights is just absolutely downright wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's wrong. And he should pursue it to the fullest because, I mean, if I could be wrong about this, but if anything comes of this, which I'm sure it will, there could be hundreds of people that are in prison right now that are fixing to get out because they made mistakes. And probably at least 50% of those people deserve to be there. And if they are back out on the streets because this guy put a freaking microphone in a room that's not supposed to be bugged like that, that's not good.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just...
All of it's bad.
It's
Yeah.
kind of an epidemic down
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and it's sad because there's a lot of good people here. Every time we come down here, we meet more good people. Toby's a magnificent guy, and all the people he has working for him are all locals, and they're all great people. So it just puts a stain on an otherwise good community.
Yes.
Because, like, they all say it's like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people are good, or 80% of the cops are good, 20%. And that's in any city.
Yeah.
Because, there's bad cops everywhere.
Yeah.
There's good, but majority of them, because a lot of them are our friends. We're very pro law enforcement. We have most of the people like Maureen, she's a dear friend. We met her through this case, and she's become a dear friend. All our friends are like either former federal agents, law enforcement. So, and they say the same thing. They say you're always going to bad apple somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's in any industry. I mean, you're a home builder and a construction, and I'm sure in every business you find there'll be a couple assholes.
Yeah.
But it always takes that one person. You can have like 100 people. One person can screw it up for everybody.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Agreed.
then that's the crazy part about this. But last thing I want to follow up on is that just this whole experience of participating in what is basically CSI, technical excavation, under the supervision of a former FBI agent and also a current CSI technician. What was that experience like for you? And it's continuing on because we're still going on.
It was quite surreal, honestly. Like from night one, I didn't know what we were walking into here at the house. Of course, we've got you guys here, and then we've got Toby here, and then we've got Maureen, and then we've got Mac. And it's like, we read the email that was sent out before we got here, and it's like, oh my goodness, we're going to be in a room with pretty phenomenal people, like very accomplished, very, very well in their fields. And I didn't know what to think. And it's like I said tonight at the dinner table, the first night it was very off-putting, almost like, oh my gosh, what am I walking into? And tonight it was like we were sitting at a dinner table with family. It was a little bit nerve-wracking out there, washing down the puddles of mud and all this stuff because it's so tedious, and you're looking for just the smallest thing, like as small as a tooth. You don't know what you're going to find. And so, yeah, it was quite an experience. Very, very, I hate to even use the word fun, but the people that were here were just a joy to be around, honestly.
Well,
So-
you and your wife were awesome too. I mean, you guys really just jumped right in there and you just did it. I mean, you just with all of your being, your full hearts, we could see those full hearts. And it was really moving for us and it was nice to see. It was nice to see you here supporting your mom and just jumping in there.
We were here for a reason. We came for a reason. We didn't just come to stand by. We've been gone for Thanksgiving, so we've been gone since last Monday from home, and we're kind of ready to go home, but at the same time we want to see this through too. Mm-hmm. If something happens, we want to be here. So yeah, and she's one of the hardest working women I know.
Oh, so, she's awesome.
Yeah. So
what did you think about when we found the tongue? What was your reaction?
I knew it. That's what I thought. I knew it. I knew we couldn't leave that spot. I knew we were in the right spot. I could feel it in my heart. It made the most sense. I heard two accomplished people say yesterday, this spot makes the most sense of any other spot because of where the location and the difficulty to get to it. And I mean, Toby lived here for however long before he even knew it was there. I mean, exactly. It made a ton of sense. So I could just feel in my spirit like that's where we needed to be. So when that came about, it was like, man, I knew it. And I still don't, I think that something's going to come of that. I can feel it. I don't know. I kept waiting, bucket after bucket today, just kept waiting to find something more. And I think we're there. I think it's just going to take a little while longer.
The one thing we know for sure, someone's human remains there.
Yeah.
Whether it's Colt or Molly, something's down there.
Yeah.
So.
And we're getting closer. I mean, we dug so much deeper today than yesterday, and earlier we were talking about how we've created this timeline and how we know now that we're around 2014, 2013 time frame. So tomorrow we have no idea what we're going to find.
No, tomorrow could be the day.
Yeah.
It could be.
We're glad you're staying. We've extended our calendar to stay here too. We have a team in place. We got to follow through on this.
Yeah, we can't just leave. We got to finish.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. We started something. We do need to follow through.
And it's so great to meet you, Folly.
Yeah.
I see your pictures on Facebook and stuff like that.
And we've heard about you for so long. That's what I was saying before. It's so nice to meet you.
Yeah. Well, and so good to see that you're here to support your mother.
Well, the pleasure's been mine for sure. I don't know. I've had a great time with you guys,
good.
Regardless of the situation.
The subject matter, yeah.
Yeah.
We've met so many amazing people doing these types of things. We've on these shows and stuff like that, and these victims' families, and you're just another one of them.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate y'all. I appreciate everything you've done for my mom.
Oh, we appreciate you too.
And the family. I don't want to say it like that. You've done it for the family.
So, I mean, it's hard not to. It's hard not to. I mean, when you have your mom's energy, it's hard. You can't say no to her.
Yeah.
Right.
She's like, it's really hard to say no to Paula. And she's like, it doesn't even come up. It's like, and she's gotten us into the mode too, because we talked about this. We're like, well, we got to go back and search this place. Yeah. And she goes, well, Rob, what are you gonna do? Well, we're going to have to put together a team.
Yeah.
I go, I'm going to call this person,
she gets us going, and then we're like, whoa, wait a second. We got to think about this.
Yeah.
And I called Maureen first, and I go, Maureen, this is the situation. She goes, oh, I got to call Mac. And I go, who's Mac? And it's Cheryl McCollum. And she's like, just look her up, Google her, and like that. And he goes, we'll pull it. And then we did the first Zoom call with Maureen, Mac, and Toby, and it was just like kismet. Everyone kind of clicked.
Yeah.
And it was just like, all right, well, let's figure this out on the calendar. And we went right after Thanksgiving. Boom.
People need to remember that's why Melissa called my mother. Mm-hmm. And she didn't call anybody else. She called my mom. Mm-hmm. Because my mom she doesn't have no quit in her.
And she gets shit done. I mean, when we needed another cadaver dog the other night, I mean, like last night, she's on the phone, need to do another one. And she's like, I'll find one.
Yeah.
She found one.
Did.
Got it done. That's what she does. She gets it done.
All right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's
Thank
great
you,
meeting
Heath.
you.
Thank you.
And tomorrow's another day, and we're going to go back digging, and hopefully we find something.
Yep.
Girl, real talk. This whole it's new year, time to reinvent myself trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco, comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
All right, so we are live from Love County, Oklahoma, and we have a very special guest with us, Maureen O'Connell, retired FBI agent. We brought Maureen out to Love County with us. We are at Toby Thomas's Battle Springs Ranch, and we have been working on Moxley Pond looking for remains. Just wanted to introduce Maureen. Maureen, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about your career and some of the things you've done in your career.
Sure. Thanks, Rob and Cindy. Nice to see you guys, as always. Nice to hang out with you guys. Wish we could relax a little more, but this has been like hard labor, but that's what you got to do to get the job done. So, as Rob said, my name is Maureen O'Connell. I spent 24 years on the FBI as an agent, and 20 of those years on the FBI's ERT team, the Evidence Response Team, and we respond to all kinds of crime scenes. We train and train from the beginning of our careers until the end, and you get to learn all kinds of stuff you're passionate about, and it's really pretty awesome. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding.
Now, Maureen, you have a history with the Molly and Colt case. You actually helped us when we did the Oxygen series. We brought you out, and you actually were with us when we actually confronted Joe Russell.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how that experience was for you and about this case in general, what you think of it.
Well, I was disappointed because you would not let me confront the sheriff. It would have been a lot more fun had I done the confrontation, but
I agree.
whatever.
We agree, but that's okay.
It was a very interesting case. It's one of those rare cases where every person you talk to and every time you turn around, there are 9 new things happening. And people are coming forward and swearing by one narrative, and then 2 days later, someone else says the exact opposite happens. And there's just a lot of back and forth, up and down, over and out, and it's been a lot of work, and you guys have really shown your stick-to-itiveness and your ability to really stick with it and vet everything and push through, which is nice. That trip, a couple of things stood out to me. This part of Oklahoma was in the areas that we were going to every day. It was a very depressed area, and I worked narcotics also for a number of years, and you can just see how drugs can ravage a community, and it was pretty sad. It was really sad.
Yeah.
What else happened? Didn't you also listen to the 911 call back then?
I did, yes.
And when you first heard it, what did you think of it? The butt dial.
Right.
It was Colby Barrick and 2 other guys sitting at Moxley Pond,
Yes.
where we were today, talking about putting their finger through Molly's cheek, that they put their finger right through it because they shot her.
Well, that's what it appeared to sound like.
At least what it sounded like.
That's what it sounded like.
Well, it seemed very fortuitous that they butt dialed 911, and then of course that call was recorded, as 911 calls are, and they talked about putting their finger through a wound that they inflicted on Molly's cheek. A lot of stuff I couldn't understand, but I understand there's a cleaned up version, and I'm really looking forward to listening to that. It was just these guys over here by Moxley Lake where we've been working the last several days and talking about this heinous crime that they committed, and it was just shocking. You'd think with that type of information that they all would have been arrested.
Well, all 3 of them were felons, and they weren't allowed to have weapons, firearms, and they were, number 1, trespassing, because it's not their property, and number 2, they all had firearms. All that happened to them was they got ticketed.
Sounds like Los Angeles in today's environment.
Exactly. But let's get back to Moxley Pond, because we are on Battle Springs Ranch where Moxley Pond is. That hole, that pond that is in between these 2 larger bodies of water, has always been very eerie for us when we first saw it. Unfortunately, you didn't get to see it when you were here. You were only here for a limited time, but we spent a lot of time down there. Toby Thomas, whose this properties were on, when he bought it, he had no idea that his property was at the subject of a possible double homicide. And so when he found out about it, he did his own research, and he brought people in to with cadaver dogs, and he took the water out, sucked the water out, and had cadaver dogs, and he got several hits on it. And we talked to Toby about this on the podcast. And so, but he backed away because he didn't know what to do at that point, because he didn't want to touch anything or disturb anything. So we've been talking to Toby for months now, and we said we want to bring a team back here. And that's when we enlisted both yourself and also Cheryl McCullum.
Cheryl McCullum, yes.
Who we know as Mac. Mm-hmm. And she was with us for a day with you. And you stayed along, and we've been working that. So let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing for the past couple of days.
Sure. Well, for the purposes of the listeners, I'll tell you that there's a North Lake and a South Lake, and they're quasi-connected by this oftentimes dry creek that leads to this huge cavernous, deep, round pool of water. And it's very interesting. It's got sandstone all the way around it, but there's a great deal of tree coverage, so you wouldn't be able to see it from overhead, even with a drone. Toby has cleared a lot of that stuff away, so now you probably could see it with a drone. He had it dug out and dug a little culvert into it so that we could have access and egress when we're trying to pull out dirt from that location and sift through it. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to look through the bottom of this ravine, so to speak, and try to find out if we could find anything that one would normally find if bodies were in this water. So what we would be looking for, obviously, would be bones, a skull, teeth, a baseball cap, a belt, a zipper, a tennis shoe, a cowboy boot, any of those type of things. And this water is very bog-like. So when we got there the first day, we drained it, or Toby's guys drained it, and there's fabulous. First of all, this whole ranch is like Yellowstone. I'm not kidding. This place is unbelievable. So he had his guys drain it. Took about an hour or whatever, and we got to it, man. We just started. He had a giant backhoe, and we probably, over the last 48 hours, went through 20 or 30 buckets, giant buckets full at least.
Tons of dirt.
Tons and tons and tons and tons. The first whole day, we didn't find anything. Not a beer can, not a hairpin, none of the things I mentioned before. Absolutely nothing but bamboo shoots,
yeah,
leaves, lots of leaves. A lot of it was black. It was very murky.
Yeah, and frustrating, because every time we saw a black leaf, we thought it was a piece of clothing, or a stick looked like a bone. Like everything that came out, we were just hoping to find something. That was kind of frustrating yesterday. And then Mac left. And today we started going a little bit deeper, because we were like, I think we need to go deeper.
Yeah, but the one thing that was interesting that both you and Mac was saying is the consistency of that pond, because of the sediment. Mm-hmm. And the deeper you went, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what you said, things would have been more preserved the deeper it is.
Right, it's such a fine silt. The silt would almost just lock everything in place, and as I said, it just really reminded me of a bog where things might be preserved, for a longer period of time than one would expect in a regular body of water. Also, it's very cold. That water is cold, and it's consistently cold, and it's deep.
Because it's a spring-fed hole.
Right. And the spring-fed, I would guess it might come over the top, and then it rushes off onto the
Well, actually,
overrun.
What we discovered today is that it's spring-fed from the bottom, which probably makes it even more cold. And as we know, history knows about bogs, like from in London and stuff like that. And Ireland, they find swords from the Middle Ages that are pretty well preserved, but they can actually stay intact for hundreds of years. Not only was it the perfect place for something to be preserved, but when you looked at it, when we first looked at it, and Toby didn't even know it was on his property, even when he bought the place. But it looks like the perfect place to kind of get rid of somebody.
It's a really good place to dump a body, and it's in a location that's known as one of the best fishing holes. They were saying that it's just fantastic, and a lot of the kids in the area, and I mean going back 100 or more years, used to fish within 100 yards of this small body of water.
And also it's very covered. I mean, that's the thing. There also looks like you could walk back there and no one would ever see you. It's completely surrounded by bamboo and trees and woods, and there's an overhang of trees that you can't, like Maureen said, you could never see in there unless you were looking for it.
But interestingly, when Toby first moved here, he noticed that there was a barrel back there with a bunch of rounds shot into it, and a couple beer cans up top in an area very close to that, and that was a place that was supposedly frequented by some of the young guys in the area. They would fish in that little area, and then they would hang out and have a little party and just have the place all to themselves.
Yeah, apparently what Toby told us is that during that time before he bought it, apparently there weren't really fences around that area. And so anybody who ever wanted to had the run of that place. And we're talking 3,000 acres. So you could be on there and no one even know that you're on there. And at that time, in 2013, they did have run of this place. And we know that Colby Barrack's favorite fishing spot was literally 100 yards from there. And he was obviously there with 2 other guys after Molly and Colt went missing. And that's when they got caught. And the butt dial, and they were trespassing, and they had firearms, and they got ticketed. But it's documented. It's there. We have paperwork for that. Mm-hmm. So we felt, as well as Toby, because it's his property now, he goes, we need to search this. And I want to do anything in my power to kind of make that happen. So we took that as an invitation for us to do it. And so that's why we brought you here. That's why we brought Mac here. And we'll be talking to Mac about this as well. And I think it's been very fruitful. If anything, we're ruling out things.
Always.
As Mac always says, and you said, he goes, she always told us when she was here, she goes, even if we find nothing, it's still good news because at least you can rule out. Mm-hmm. But we did find something. We think we found something. And we'll talk about that in a minute. From a federal law enforcement official you've done hundreds of these things. What is your perspective on this?
Initially, the whole first day, as Cindy was saying, it was so frustrating because I've never worked a crime scene where we haven't found anything. And we worked like
all day,
like a chain gang, all day long.
And when I say that, Maureen was in the mud. Everybody was in the mud with hoses and rakes and shovels and digging and going through every piece of dirt that came through and trying to see if they could find something. And it was amazing how much work they got done in one day.
We had large sifting screens, smaller sifting screens, and tarps, of course, to put we had to have tarps because otherwise we would have washed away a lot of the stuff that was beneath it. And we had some really good eyes on it. The people that were working with us, I gave them a long briefing, and throughout the entire time we were there, and even today with this great dog handler we really explained everything, and they were just like sponges. They just wanted to learn and learn and learn, and boy did they. And we ended up just really, I think, doing a phenomenal job, and it wasn't until today that we really found, honestly, anything.
Yeah. Well, to be perfectly honest, after we had a whole day of digging, we did bring in a dog team.
Yesterday,
and the dog team didn't hit on anything, but we didn't feel like we weren't satisfied because Toby wasn't satisfied either because he had 3 or 4 different dogs.
FBI trained and certified,
yes,
and state certified here in Oklahoma.
Who would hit, and we have videotape of that, and they hit hard, each one of them in the same area. We felt it was only natural to bring in another team, and we were able to get another team to come in all the way from Tulsa, and this person works with the OSBI quite often and works with them, and he's working on a lot of high-profile cases, and his dog hit exactly where those other ones, it was a Belgian Malinois, mm-hmm, highly trained, and hit right in the same place where those other dogs did. So
he had 2 Belgian Malinois, and they're just fantastic animals. They're great dogs, and they do a lot of work for police departments throughout the world, and they're just renowned for being just really spirited and very good at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked with dogs before, mm-hmm, and I would have to say the Belgian Malinois, they are like the special forces as far as yes, dogs, whether it's for drugs or for cadavers or for bombs. You can almost, and I always say this, you can always see them like thinking. Mm-hmm. It's like they're not like they're walking, and you can actually see their brains working. It's just fascinating.
And these dogs, they alerted so quickly. I mean, it took them 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think sooner than that.
And they had already alerted in the same spot that the other dogs had alerted to Toby. And in the same spot where Maureen and Mac and I yesterday, we were like, that seems like the place. It was in the same spot.
Well, it's the totality of all the information that we've gotten, and a lot of the stuff that you guys have disproven brought us to that location. Mm-hmm. And what about the pinging of the phones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the phones pinged right there.
Right.
So that's from the butt dial 911 call. Those phones pinged right where the dog sat down.
At the end of the first day, I think we were all pretty dejected. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could feel the energy just kind of come out. And we'll talk to Heath, who is Paula's son, who's been here with us. And he was the only one. We all felt like we came up short. felt like there was more work to be done. Last night we were sitting around talking, and he's the one who he said, I feel like there's something there, and I feel like we're not done yet, and I feel like there's something more there. He's the only one who spoke up about it, and that's when we started scurrying around trying to get other dog teams there, and we were thankful that we could get someone to come in such short notice. This guy drove 3.5 hours from Tulsa to come down here first thing in the morning. And then when it hit, it gave everybody a lifeline. It's like, all right, we got to go deeper. We got to get back in there. And that's exactly what we did. And tell us what we started finding when we started going deeper.
Well, before we go there, Toby had told me that on that dry creek bed I was telling you guys about, there was a huge beaver dam, and that beaver dam was causing the water to back up into one of his lakes, and it was causing flooding and stuff. So we had to get rid of that beaver dam. When he got rid of that beaver dam, all of that debris went into this swimming hole area that we're talking about. And so we felt at a certain point yesterday, we thought we were to the bottom of that, but it turns out that there was a little bit more than we thought. So today we got to the bottom of it. And once we got to the bottom of it and got beneath it, we found it was a
goose decoy.
The
decoys for hunting.
Yeah, it was a Canadian goose decoy, and it was really heavy. It felt almost heavy enough that you could weight down a body with it, but it turns out, no, it was just filled with mud and this really fine silt. So we cleaned that out, and it was just this regular decoy. That was, at least we found something. And then the second thing we found was a zip tie, and the zip tie appears to have been snapped open or cut right near the connection. Mm-hmm. And so I took that zip tie that was cut, and I had Cindy hold her arms out in front of me, and it fit perfectly around her wrists if I were to use that as a restraint. Then I put my wrists together, and we did it again, and it fit snugly around my wrists. So we thought that there is a possibility that zip tie may have been used in some way, shape, or form in this crime. So that gave us a little new life also today.
Yeah. And then as we got deeper, it seemed like more things were coming up. Like we found an arrow, and the arrow was, and Toby told us he could kind of date it because he remembers that they were shooting arrows in that area. So that gave us more of a timeline. So it seemed like, and then the gentleman, I forget his name who was doing the backhoe. What was his name again, his first name? Brian. So Brian, who works with Toby. When I asked him, I go, are you at the bottom yet? And he goes, no, this is still going deeper. He goes, I'm not at the bottom. This thing's still going. And as you could see, as he was digging deeper, the water must have been spring-fed from the bottom because it kept on filling up from the bottom because we had drained all the water. Then we kept on digging deeper. And then we ran up to the house for a second, and then we got a call from Toby for us to come back down and tell everybody what we thought we found.
Toby thought he found a human tongue or a chunk of a human tongue. And so I went over there. I'm not a doctor, and I looked at it, and it did have the consistency and the texture, and you know how you can see on a tongue, you can see all the taste buds and stuff. That all appeared to be there. And so I said we need to call a medical examiner or a forensic anthropologist or something. So we did, and that's all in the works. The thing we were thinking of or the way that we were trying to figure out how a chunk of a tongue could get into this.
Because it looked like it was bit in half. It looked like half a tongue.
Yes, it was severed in half, and it looked like it was bit in half. We imagined a couple scenarios. One would be she's getting in a struggle. She's in a fight for her life, or either Colt or Molly, and someone either hits the bottom of her jaw and it severs the tongue, or she could have fallen into the area and there's a bunch of trees in there also, guys. So all this cover from all these trees, as this place expands because it's sandstone, the trees fall into this body of water. So there were a bunch of trees in there, and someone easily, if they jumped in or if anyone dove in there, they would definitely hit a giant log. So we were thinking maybe she fell in and she was unconscious and that caused her tongue or whatever. So we're still in the process. We took that piece of evidence, whatever it is, and we put it in water that we pulled out of the ravine, and we have it in the refrigerator now, awaiting an expert to examine it tomorrow.
It's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
It was very eerie looking at that, because at first we've been digging and didn't find anything, and obviously getting discouraged. And then looking at that, at first I was like, is that possible that it could be someone's tongue? And then you look at it closer, and it was an eerie feeling looking at it. So I believe, and I'm going to stick with this, that if we keep going deeper, we're going to find more stuff, because it did give us a timeline of, you're talking 9 years of debris in that hole. So now if some of the stuff we're dating is like 2016, 2014, it's going down.
We found one beer can from 2019, and that Toby said that's from him. So he remembers that. And so we knew where we were in the layer of debris at the bottom when we got to that. And then we just continued on and on and on and on and finally found this thing. But to bring it to light for the listeners, everything looked the same. Honestly, there was nothing but sand-colored silt, black as ink, leaves and twigs and bamboo, and everything was the same. It was crazy.
And if you would have seen, and we took a lot of video, which we're going to post on our website, the amount of dirt that we went through. The tons, the amount and you see the size of this piece of tongue. It was literally, and I think someone said it earlier, it's like you're finding a needle in a haystack of needles. And that's basically what we found. And who knows what it is, but I think it's enough for someone to look at, of someone who's trained, a medical examiner, forensic anthropologist, to test it to see what it is. Who knows what it is? But the fact that it was still kind of intact and it had that spongy quality that a tongue would have, and the fact that where it came from, like you said before, the deeper we went, the water was colder. That's going to preserve it as much as you can, because a lot of the stuff that we were pulling out there was pretty well preserved. It wasn't like little tree limbs and everything, which we thought some of them looked like bones.
So many of them look like bones.
Oh, so many misfires. We thought we saw skulls. How many times? Yeah. Like over and over, because we're all looking. We have, 14 eyes looking on this. And each, like Maureen said, it's the dirt. Everything looks the same. So when you see one thing that might be a little bit different, everybody's like, oh, what is it? What is it? And then we found this strange looking tongue, potentially.
Maureen, from your perspective of your career as a law enforcement person and doing all these kind of searches and stuff like that, what is, I mean, we're going to continue digging. Unfortunately, you can't stay and you have to go home tomorrow, but you've kind of set us up in the perfect kind of scenario so we know what to look for. And we have been talking to law enforcement. We've been informing them of what our findings are and what we're doing. Should we just keep on going and seeing what we find? And
yes, I would go on until you get to a place where you're confident it precedes the two victims going missing. I think that would be the best course of action at this point. You have a real solid rhythm now. We put together a good team. We worked really hard, and you guys know what you're looking for now.
One of the things I wanted to bring up, and the last thing I want to talk about, is that we also have Paula here, and we have Paula's son and his wife here. And
they're great.
And they have been helping too.
They're unbelievable.
They are.
Normally it's unprecedented to have a family member looking for these remains of but Paula has been doing this since day one. She's organized searches and stuff like that. From your perspective, what is that like for you, having a family member in the mud looking for the remains of their loved one?
It's very uncomfortable, but it would be different if Paula was her mother or her sister even. She is a second cousin or something, but I'm not saying that they weren't close, because they were very close. And Molly spent a lot of time with her at the end of her life. She kept telling me, there's nothing you can tell me that I haven't thought of, or there's nothing you can show me that I haven't seen. And she's a powerful woman, and she wants to be part of it, so she's part of it. And then her son, Heath, has just been a stalwart from the beginning, and he worked so hard, and he did such a great job, so eager to learn. We really just walked through everything, and in the first 55 times we thought we found anything, I'd go through it very slowly with them and show them why and what this looks like and what this actually is. And so it was fun. I like to teach, and so it was interesting. Boy, could they work. And his wife Bonnie was just
eagle eyes.
She was unbelievable.
Oh, unbelievable. She just was in there with covered in mud from head to toe, sprayed with the hose in her face, like didn't care, just digging, looking. I mean, they just were so committed to this, and it was amazing to watch.
I have to say, it's the strangest scavenger hunt I've ever been on. Knowing this case, we've been doing this case now for 4 or 5 years now, and to be able to be ground level and actually sifting through dirt and muck and water looking for either Molly or Colt. I don't know. it doesn't hit me until at the end of the day.
Right. It's the same for most of us. And Rob may have thought that he was going to just film or something, but you guys, I wasn't letting him off that easy. I'm like, hold this, do this, get the mud, let me. And, of course, Cindy was chipping in the whole time, but it's backbreaking work. Anyone that's done it will tell you it's backbreaking work, and it's emotionally draining work.
Absolutely. But I have to say, I have to commend you on your professionalism and just taking control of the situation. When you and Matt came here, you were teachers, because you were sitting there, you have all this help, inexperienced help, even though we have a lot of knowledge, but we've done a couple of these and some
searches
of the shows,
and things like that, but not like this today.
Like this.
No. And also just, being so patient with everybody and really just breaking the ice and making everyone comfortable. Maureen cooks for everyone. I mean, she's a freaking superstar, rock star. You can't even compare. So it was awesome to have you here. So we're really grateful that you were able to come.
You. But wasn't it interesting, because I'm in Oklahoma now, and I live in LA, and I was born and raised in Chicago. But we found stuff that if I didn't have these guys that grew up on farms and big ranches, I would have known what it was, like the turtle shells. The turtle shells. It took me a while I was looking at that and I thought, is this shoe leather? This is, great.
Or is it a piece of skull?
Yeah.
Because we found
that one was the color of bone.
Exactly. It actually looked like a piece of skull. Like, some of them were black. This one was skull color. It was like bone color.
Bone color, right.
And it looked like a puzzle piece. So you know how like fractures in a bone, like in a skull, and it looked like that, but it's unfortunately a turtle.
So I tapped into all the knowledge that the whole team had. It's always a good team. You'll always focus on people's strengths and try to not pay much attention to their weaknesses, and try to build from a place of weakness to a place of strength, and just sort of raise the overall knowledge posture as you move forward. And boy, they were like sponges. Everybody was.
It was definitely a team effort. Everybody's attitudes was great. Literally, we've been working like at least 15 hours a day in that muck.
Yes.
As soon as the sun goes down, we had to stop. But
and then we came back for lunch at about 3:00 in the afternoon or something. I was like, I'm starving. We come back to the ranch or the lodge, and someone's like, oh, should we pack it up and take it down there? And I was like, no, I can't smell that stuff anymore, because it's just, the smell is just pungent.
Well, all I have to say is I have even more respect for law enforcement officials like yourself that do that on a daily basis. Like you said, you've done hundreds of these things. I don't know what energy that you can summon up when you're doing these, because a lot of these things you're dealing with a lot of other cases where you said you usually find things, like you find bodies. And
like one time looking for a gun. We didn't find the gun we were looking for that was used in a murder, but we found 4 or 5 other guns. So we're used to finding things and being targeted in our approach. And I felt that this was a very targeted approach, which is always very important to me. It was strange. So when you're going out on something like that, it's an assignment, essentially. You're part of the ART team or any type of CSI team. You get assigned to do something, and all this stuff gets mustered up as a sense of respect for the victims of crime and for their families. And you say to yourself, I would want someone to do this a really good job or better if my loved one was in peril.
And I think that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're all here. That's why we've been doing this. That's why we did the television show. That's why we do the podcast, because there's unfinished business here. And we're hoping that each thing that we do brings us closer, because we know law enforcement's still investigating the case. They have turned on the afterburners, I think, with the enthusiasm of what people have been bringing to them, and hopefully they'll get more answers.
And back to your point about what it's like to be with family members when you're searching like this, how often during these last couple of days did we hear great stories about Molly and how good she was? She was a great student. She was a lot of fun. And she fell on hard times and got in with the wrong crowd, and look what happened. I mean, it's just tragic, and it could happen to anybody.
And that's really important, because a lot of people forget that she was a 17-year-old girl, and they think of her as an object because it's been so long and they didn't know her. So this case has always become like this myth surrounding it of all these different stories and this and that and rumors. But this was a 17-year-old girl and a 21-year-old boy who went missing and who are dead, and their families have no idea what happened to them. So I think listening to those stories, it's just a reminder that this was a 17-year-old teenager hanging out with her friends.
Right.
And like you said, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for coming. We really appreciate everything you've done for us in this case, and obviously anything that else that comes up will keep you fully in. I mean, you're part of the team now. You've always been part of our team because we've since we've been doing this Molly and Colt case, and just glad that you're here and glad that you're able to help us out.
I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you guys. You do a great job.
We know that everyone has been so patient and anxious to see the video from the excavation, and we thank you for subscribing. The video from the first day of the excavation dig will launch within the next week, and the second day of the dig and the aftermath will launch in January. We really appreciate your patience.
In January, we will also be adding other materials for our paid subscribers and ad-free versions of the podcast.
This podcast exists because of all the support coming from our audience, and we are so grateful to all of you. We thank you for all of your support and all that you do to support not only us, but the search for Molly and Colt.
Next time on Partners in True Crime.
Taking that sample and they're breaking it down for histology so they can look at the cellular makeup under a microscope as soon as they get that done, so it may take a day or two.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
For any tips relating to the disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, please contact 833-4-MOLLY and Colt, and they will be directed to the proper law enforcement agency.
All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.